Bob, I've wondered whether God exists my whole life. And recently, I've talked to some very smart people, philosophers, theologians, scientists. I have scientific arguments, analytical, philosophical arguments, experiential, personal arguments, arguments from miracles, revelations, a whole host of reasons why people want to me as a person to believe. Should I believe?
I don't think you should, and the reasons are very simple. The one thing we have learned is that all physical events have a physical cause. There couldn't be science without that. If every time we did an experiment, we had to wonder whether some supernatural being is in there affecting it, that would be the end of science. And science works. I mean, quite unlike religion. Well, nothing has changed in religion in thousands of years. The world is being transformed by science. We now have the opportunity for the first time to make this world what it should be like, not what it turned out like. This is not the world the world that we have been in is not the world we want to live in. That's why we're changing it. That's why we accept the changes of science. We can eradicate disease. We can eradicate suffering.
Sure, science works. I mean,
it works.
No question about that. And I think everyone I've spoken to from the religious side believes science works. But they would say that science comes to a dead end. There's a part when science can't go any further, and that's where religion has to give its explanatory power to tell us what life is all about, the purpose of life, the origins of the universe, and the meaning of existence.
That's a changing target. Look, every physical advance we make, every scientific advance we make, pushes that border back a little further. So, I mean, they're retreating, and they've retreated a long way already. Every educated person accepts the idea of evolution. I mean, it's so evident that you can't deny it. But it took a long time to get to that point. And
some of these people will give you all the scientific facts. They'll accept all of that. They'll admit they've retreated, but they then say, when I get to this point, to some ultimate causation, then science is over, and there's a hard and fast boundary beyond which science can't go, and that's where religion must take over to give the answers that we all seek.
Perhaps that's the Big Bang. But has this supernatural being done anything since the Big Bang? I mean, if that's all he's for, if he was just there to set off the Big Bang, what's the point of it? He has nothing to do with our lives, he or she or whatever. I accept that we can't go beyond the Big Bang. That's probably so. Though maybe we can make some sensible speculations about it in the future. But and we're working on that. But that may very well be our barrier. But once we accept that, what's this God doing? Does he involve himself into my day-to-day affairs? If not, why are almost all the people in the world busy praying? Who hears their prayers? I've heard all my life that God answers people's prayers. Well, on 9/11, the terrorists involved in 9/11 prayed that morning to their God for the strength to face certain death so that they might kill people that they've never met. Now, did God grant their prayers? It was a terribly successful mission from that standpoint. This looks enormously successful. Did God grant their prayers? I hope not. I would not like to live in that kind of world. And I don't think I do.
Well, but people say that certainly there's human frailties, human beings make mistakes, but in some grand overall purpose, you cannot explain the existence of the universe, of human life, of human sentience, of consciousness, without invoking some kind of supernatural existence.
Oh, I don't see any evidence for that at all. I mean, once again, we're answering question after question after question. We now get to this question of sentience. It's an important question. In fact, it's kind of the frontier right now.
Sure.
Behavioral psychology, what's changed it, I'd like to say, is the physicists. We produce the devices that are used to scan the brain, and that's where the frontier is. So this is just another one of the barriers that we're knocking down one after another. When 100 years ago, people didn't understand all sorts of things that are understood now. 200 years ago, they didn't understand lightning. I mean, we understand all these things now. It's a terribly old-fashioned idea to invoke a supernatural presence of some sort. I mean, that's what people used to do. We don't need to do that anymore.
Look, certainly if you go into the far past, you needed a supernatural presence to explain lightning. And then maybe a little later, you still needed it to explain life and human life. Now we've eliminated all of those things. But the argument still remains. At some point, there's going to be a place where science cannot go any further. So religion has retreated. I think virtually every smart religious person accepts that they've constantly retreated, and now they're in a corner, but they're saying that this area that we're now in, you can't come any further. This is the domain of religion, and indeed, religion then from this little domain can then explain everything else and accept science. But when it does, it puts science in the purpose of science in this meaning.
Draw that boundary for me. I mean, where are we when we get to this point? The only one I can think of is the Big Bang. And in fact, if we accept the Big Bang, what's God been doing since then?